Okay, today we are going to be talking about basic facial proportion of the human face, and there are a couple of guidelines that you can see here on my paper that I want to kind of explain to you. So I've drawn the basic egg shape, and this particular one is about 5 inches by about 7 inches, so it is taller than it is wide. I have added a line of symmetry that runs vertically, dividing the face in half because it's basically a mirror image of itself. And there are lots of other lines here which I'll kind of get into along the way. But essentially what you need to know is that from the top to the bottom, it's been divided in half, and then in half again, so quarters. And then we've got a little extra line down here as well. So we're going to talk about the head from top to bottom in terms of quarters, or the fourth of the head at a time. And what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some lines out to the side because I'm going to add some notes in this space to talk about what happens in each of these quarters. Okay. So this is going to be quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Now, when we talk about facial proportion, we're really talking about two things. We're talking about where things are located and how large they are in relationship to the other pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, the other elements, the other features, and then the head as a whole. So over here, we're specifically going to be talking about where things are located, and then later on I'm going to come in and talk about the size of things. The main problem I see when people are first starting to learn about how to draw the human face is that we tend to underestimate how much space at the top of the head is made up of just hair. It's the top of the head that's covered with hair. And when we underestimate that, we end up placing the eyes, the nose, and mouth all too high on the head. The way to fix that is to start by lowering the eyes all the way down to the middle of the head, and that might seem a little bit low, but I think when we put this all together, it will start to make a little bit more sense to you. So if we keep in mind that the top fourth of the head is made up of hair, that's the main attraction, I like to say, that's happening, and it really takes up that whole first quarter. So at the bottom of the first quarter equals the hair line. That's the place where the hair begins or the hair ends, and sometimes that line is covered depending on the style of the hair, but everybody has a hairline and we need to know where it is. So this all is hair. That takes us down to the second quarter, and we don't want to skim over an important part of the face, which is the forehead. So that's the main attraction, the main thing happening in that second quarter. Within that same quarter, we of course will have eyebrows, and then our eyes fall on this center line right here. So we can go ahead and add that at the bottom of quarter 2 is what I call the eye line. The eyes, the line runs right through the eyes. They don't rest on that line. So they're sort of halfway in the top in this quarter and halfway in the next one. If we're now talking about quarter 3, there's actually a couple things happening in quarter 3. At the eye line is the beginning of the nose, and it's going to go all the way down to the bottom of the third quarter. And the same thing is true of your ears. The ears and the nose take place in the same fourth, the same quarter of the head. And so we'll go ahead and add that note here. And we want to go ahead and add too that they take up the entire quarter. Now, of course, I'm talking top to bottom, not side to side. The nose is not that wide. We'll get into that later. And then in quarter 4, this might be a little bit confusing because, of course, the mouth does not take up all of quarter 4. It's not all the way at the top. It's not all the way at the bottom, and believe it or not, it's also not in the middle. The mouth is closer to the nose than it is to the chin, but we don't want to get it too close to the nose, and we don't get it too close to the chin, so it's a little bit tricky. So what I've done here is I have divided this last quarter in half again, so into eighths. And now the mouth is going to rest on this line. So it's actually going to take place in the top half of that quarter. But it's going to rest on that line. I like to call that line the mouth shelf. That's where the mouth is going to rest. The bottom of the bottom lip will rest on that shelf. So this might be a little confusing, but hopefully you're following along. We're going to go halfway down quarter 4. So that's where we came up with that line. And this is going to be where rests the bottom of the mouth. Okay, and of course I know that's a little confusing when you actually see it drawn. I think that will make some more sense to you. So those are the locations or the placement of those basic facial features. The other thing we need to know is about the neck and the shoulders, and that is a place we tend to way underestimate the width and way overestimate the length. In terms of the neck, we tend to make it tall and skinny like a giraffe, but we are not a giraffe. We have a pretty bulky neck, and it has an important job of holding up our head. So we want to make sure we give it enough mass to accomplish that task. So the neck actually starts in line with the corners of the mouth, just below quarter 4. So we can't see the mouth here yet, but it will fall right in here. We follow that out to the sides, and that's going to be where the start of the neck is. So let's add that note in. It's going to start in line with the corners of the mouth. And believe it or not, it's going to stop at the bottom of the chin. It is not nearly as long as you think it is. So if we were to draw a straight line across the bottom of the chin, we're going to see where the shoulders begin to sort of fan out. Now keep in mind, we actually have neck down in this space here, but we're talking about where does the neck, from looking at the front view of a person, where does the neck and the shoulder meet? And that happens basically in line with the chin. Now, how wide are the shoulders? That's another place we tend to underestimate. We try to squeeze them onto the paper, and it's just not going to work. So we want to keep in mind that the shoulders are going to be 3 necks wide. 3 necks wide. So there should be room for a neck that is there, and then one on either side of it as well, which means our shoulders are going to run off the side of the page, not the bottom of the page, because they're not going to fit. They're going to run off the sides of the page. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as we are thinking about facial proportions. We want to get the neck and the shoulder right as well.